all, and welcome to the Other 14 FC podcast. I'm Alex, Crystal Palace fan.
And I'm Tom, a West Ham fan.
Are you tired of your team being last on match of the day and not getting the flowers they deserve? Well, that's all about to change because we're about to shine a light on those other 14 teams in the league. So yeah, Tom, how are you going anyway? Do you have a good week?
Yeah, not bad. As you know, I'm starting a new job tomorrow, so I've had a week off between work, which has allowed me to do a lot of resting and chilling, but also staying up late to watch the NFL draft. So yeah, nice little week off for me. What about you?
Yeah, I had a pretty busy week, as you can imagine, with the FA Cup semi-final on Saturday. Then I had some mates staying down that were doing the marathon as well, so it was pretty much a back-to-back 2 days. Yeah, literally got in, I think, about midnight on Saturday after the football, then was straight to the marathon at about 9 a.m. the next day. Yeah, didn't get a chance to have a break, really, and starting work today on Monday wasn't the easiest, but yeah,
Back
happy.
for the bang. How was the atmosphere of Saturday?
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was like everything you could really ask for. On the commentary, I watched the highlights when I got up the next morning, and it's saying like one of the biggest days in the club's history. And I think for Palace, that's probably true. It's just, yeah, it was something different this time than when we've been to Wembley before. It was all a bit like we could actually maybe do it this year. And it's all
Yeah,
like a bit like we're a team that's like pushing and getting better rather than, oh, we've kind of like stumbled into this place now. And yeah, I just couldn't
yeah. I
ask
mean,
for
I
more.
think from the atmosphere and from everything that I've seen in and around the grounds and stuff, like it felt like a proper day out for Palace fans, but one with optimism. And then that also felt like it was replicated by the team and the manager and sort of like the words that they've said. Like it, this run to the final for Palace has definitely not been full of mistakes or full of luck or anything like that. It's been a quality run to the final and one that you never know could end up with red and blue around the trophy.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it too much, like before we actually break it down a bit in the analysis. But yeah, I think just the day in general, like starting at 10:30 at Spoons, having breakfast, hopping on the train, having a few more beers, and then getting to Covent Garden where we had a takeover by the ultras, and just you got the smoke grenades going off, you got the flags going, and it's absolutely a sea of red and blue. You just yeah, it's days like that you kind of remember why you're doing this for football. And I was there with my mum, who I go to all my home games with, and then with a couple of my best mates who go away with me every now and then, and seeing old faces, new faces. Like it's just yeah, it's what football's all about and why we're here. And I think Wembley is more special to the other 14 sides. Well, yeah, I would say to all the other 14 sides because we don't get to be there every time. I think I heard on the commentary City have been there 30 times since
Yeah,
2012 or something stupid. Like, and then their excuses for there being empty seats because they need to save it up to go to the actual bigger away games or some shit. It's just
yeah.
that's
Bit of a
there's
kick
no
in the teeth that for the other 14.
yeah,
But I mean, Palace had a great away day, and yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't the same for Forest and Villa. But we'll get into that.
yeah. We'll get into that. Should we take a break then and then get into a bit of analysis on the games from the weekend?
Yeah, let's do it.
Nice. Cool, and we're back. So, Tom, where do you want to start with these weekend's results?
I mean, we've definitely got to start with the FA Cup first, and feel like I have to throw it straight back onto you and be like, Palace, mate, 3-0 against Villa.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was hoping that'd be the only place we could start this week. Oh, mate, where do I even begin? It's to going into the game. I think I said I was expecting it to go to penalties and be a really tight game and would probably lose to Villa. We've had Villa's number this season, and I really didn't think Emery would fall. Not maybe not fall for the trap again, but when we perform well, it's because Ismail Lassar has stopped,
Mm.
and they just gave him the freedom of the pitch to run in behind constantly. And as soon as he gets the ball rolling and he's going, this Palace team starts clicking big time because all of them
Yeah,
can spray balls to him. You got Munoz coming up from one side, you got Mateta holding you up, you got Ebbs, like when he turns up, he's also a game changer. Like he didn't look good in the first 30, but that one moment of magic to put it past Martinez is just like,
yeah. With Eze, you've always got that moment of magic. From a Villa side, it felt like they as you say, they didn't learn from their lessons, and I think I didn't put enough credit in the bank of that form that Palace have against Villa. But it felt like Villa and Emery just kind of went, okay, well, we're probably on paper the better team, and we've
mm,
had the better season with obviously Champions League and everything. So we should dictate how this game goes, and we should put ourselves first, like our tactics, our formation, like what we want to do, and then believe that that will put Palace like that will overcome Palace, and it just really didn't again for Villa. It just played into Palace's hands, like as you say, like the pressing and like the timing of it from, because it's not like a forward line press, it's like a mid press where like it would come out to someone like Pau Torres, and Wharton would join the likes of Sarr and Mateta in the press, and that they just look like arrows in attack. The three of those, and later on Nketiah getting in on the action with the press as well. Like it was just tactics put down to a T. Like you could see exactly what everyone on the Palace side of the field knew what they were doing.
Yep.
They knew when to go. There wasn't. I wouldn't say this was a game where there was a star player on the pitch. Like I think Sarr gets credit for his couple of goals and his general play, and I think Eze gets credit for that beautiful opener. But I think this was just like a really, really well executed team performance more than anything.
Yeah, I would agree with you completely. But also, I would say, and I said this about the game where we beat them 4-1 at home, if they had scored first, I see them running on and routing us.
I think you could say that about every Palace game, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it looks like, and the tactics and everything are so set up to be like, well, we know what we can do well. Like we can defend solidly. So if we get that goal ahead, then the rest of the game becomes a lot more simple for us, and then it obviously pushes like Villa to be like, well, we need to attack like more, like obviously slowly as the game gets on they get a bit more desperate and make some more mistakes, etc., trying to force that. But it played out perfectly for Palace and Glasner's tactics.
It really did. I mean, 3-0, the pick of the goals for me is probably Sar's last one because the limbs, the celebration. I'm not afraid to say, like, it became a very emotional day for me. I was there crying in the stand because the last time I went to Wembley. I've seen two losses, Chelsea in the semis and United in the FA Cup final. So realising I was going to leave with a win to make my returns at Wembley now, 3 wins, 2 losses, it was emotional. But being with my mum, who's taken me since I've been a kid as well, it all just overcame me a little bit, and it's just
I mean, this could have been anything for Palace though. Like what was a great day out and a 3-0 win honestly could have been 4 or 5.
yeah.
There's the first one that gets overturned, Meteta's one that felt harsh.
In the stadium, we just accepted that I was either going to be an offside or just like whatever. But I saw the replay and yeah, it's harsh. If that was the other way round, I'd be like, I've got away with one there. Like if Ollie Watkins was running through. But what did you make? I want to focus on Villa because they've had a great season, and I feel for them a bit like if there was going to be a team to win it, it would have wanted it to be either Palace, Villa, or Forest, obviously. But I feel like Ollie Watkins didn't really shine in the game. Did anyone stand out for you massively for them?
No, I mean Villa had a lot of control of the ball throughout the game, but they didn't do a ton with it. They created some chances, and on a better day, Villa probably could have scored once or twice. But generally, they look like a team going through the motions, trying to like running into alleyways or being like, how do we unpick this Palace team? And they never really looked like they had the answer. Like when Leon Bailey came on late in the game, they looked like he created a few chances and looked like he might be able to do something, but the game was already sort of out of touch for Villa by that point. They needed something to spark a turnaround. And then like Emery's choice to play Pau Torres over Tyrone Mings when like
That was
Pau
crazy.
Torres like just isn't that sort of like defender who's going to do well against someone like Mateta, or with Sarr like his pace running at him from that sort of like inside channel.
When I saw the team sheet, I was just there like, okay, maybe in my head, I thought of Pau Torres as a different player the whole time. But then the game played out, and I was like, no, this is exactly what I expected. Like,
Hmm.
it's a it was a weird decision all round. But you're saying about like they needed something to spark it round. Obviously Mateta misses the penalty. I to this day think he missed it on purpose. Because, nah, of course not. I think missing the penalty was Villa's point to spark it round, and it may be biasy, it may be that Emi Martinez does get under my skin. I mean, but in a good way. Like if he was my keeper, I'd love him to be my keeper. But I feel like the way he celebrated Mateta missing it kind of not overshadowed the miss, but in a weird way took something away from Villa being like, okay, he's missed it. Let's take this energy and go down the other end of the field. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure as a Palace fan you were fearing the worst,
Oh,
given like
100%.
a week ago as a fluff
Newcastle, yeah.
penalty and Newcastle just went and scored like 4 goals in rapid succession, pretty much, and like so I'm sure every Palace fan was feeling the same as you, like, Christ, we've missed a penalty, they're going to come back onto us, but I think the second goal coming pretty soon after that,
Yeah, five
I think
minutes
like
later.
yeah, like kind of kills that hope.
Mm.
Like I think Villa got on the ball a little bit, but there's such little time between the 2 goals, and then it's 2-0, and then the game honestly looked out of their reach. And it's a weird one for Villa because like now, like there are people, all the fans will start reflecting on the season. This was the last big opportunity to get a trophy or get into a final at least. Like obviously we know what happened with the Champions League last week, and now it all comes down to finishing as high in the league table as possible. But they're one of like 4 or 5 teams going for those Champions League spots. So there's a fair chance that they might miss out on that. And then it's like, all right, where like does this season become a bit of a what if season for Villa fans?
Oh, I don't know. I feel for I've got a lot of mates who are Villa fans, and I felt for them like it wasn't like an ideal game for me to go into, if I'm being brutally honest. And all the Villa fans I met on the day were amazing. Their support was amazing. I mean, the third one goes in a lot to go, but like you got to get back to Birmingham. But everyone I met on the day was absolutely amazing, and I think they've got to be proud of their season, even if it is coming to this. Look at the joy they brought to Villa Park this year. You only got to look, what, 10 years ago, they were in the Championship and everything was doom and gloom, really. So I think that they're going to go from strength to strength. Emery, I mean, will hopefully learn for next season, but if Palace still have Glasner in charge and everyone, hopefully he'll have learned and found a way to, like, just make sure they get the first goal against us. But yeah, I don't think there's anything bad from a Villa perspective. I think they'll get Europe and they'll go on another European adventure next year, and the fans will have a great time. It'll probably be Europa League, I'm thinking, more than Champions League. But
Yeah, it feels like someone's going to drop out of that those 3 extra Champions League spots. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Villa, but they've got a couple games to bounce back now until the end of the season and try and get it.
yeah, exactly. I don't want to make it too much of a Palace podcast just because, like, I'm obviously on cloud 9. So I think should we move on to the second game unless you have anything else?
Yeah, if you've got nothing more on that one, we can turn our attention to Forest v City.
Cool. So yeah, we can move on to another selection of fans who were fantastic and another selection who were not there for some reason. But okay. From my takeaway from the game, I managed to catch all of the second half, and I've watched some of the highlights from the first half. I think Forest were incredibly unlucky not to have at least 2 goals in this game. Like, what do you think yourself?
Yeah, this was a really peculiar game from Forest. Like, I think contrast to their Monday night win over Spurs, where their game plan came out and worked perfectly. They got a couple of early goals and then could defend after that. In this one, they looked like they didn't know what they were doing for the first sort of like 30, 45 minutes.
Do you think they were? I don't. Do you think they were missing Ngala a bit too much, or they were put too much reliance on him because he came off the bench in the second half, didn't he?
Oh,
And
Elanga, yeah.
Langer,
I
sorry.
think it was a tactical decision because he started Monday night. So I definitely think they missed him, but I think it was a tactical miss by Nuno. Like, he played sort of Gibbs White and Anderson as like the wide players and had Hudson-Odoi next to Chris Wood, and it looked uncomfortable. Both Hudson-Odoi and Chris Wood looked like they were desperately trying to seek out the ball but not getting it to feet or in behind, which is what they really needed to threaten City as they have done, is to get that ball in behind, and they were sort of looking to feet too many times. I completely agree by the end of the game how Forest are not in this with at least scoring 1 or 2. Like Gibbs White, unreal chances that he's made out of his own. It's just like didn't get either of them.
But that first one, that should have been like the goal of the cup. Like, it would have been an absolute screamer. The one where he goes round the keeper it's such a tight angle for him to even make it that close was like some great work from him. And yeah, I just felt for Forest at the end of it. It's almost like I don't think they'd been there in about 20 years or something. They hadn't been to Wembley, I think was one of the stats. I think obviously it's a different team, but do you think maybe fans were quite nervous being there as well? Like we saw, it's affected them in the league a bit. They're now dropped down to sixth from third. Do you think it's just like one of those days where it's like it was maybe a bit all on top of them, or do you think they were just unprepared in that first 2 minutes, and then once City got that goal, it's hard to get yourself back into it with a City team that will just play a boring game and suffocate you?
Yeah, it's definitely a hard one for Forest. I think like they've got a few defensive injuries at the moment that don't really get talked about. Like I don't think anyone realised how much of a miss Ola Aina would be at right back, and they had Zach Abbott making his second ever start for the club, coming in and playing like a right back, and then I think he played sort of right centre back as the game moved on.
It's not what you want, really, is it, when you're going into a semi-final?
Not at all, no. So they already had to shuffle around there, and there was another piece that was missing that they shuffled around, and it didn't work. So like some of it was enforced, some of it was tactical, and it just didn't work at the start of the game. And Alanga comes on at half time, and I think you saw a completely different Forest in the second half. But unfortunately, it came up against like a team that once they get ahead are really difficult to bring back. So what I think Forest fans will be seeing it as a missed opportunity. You know, like if they could have started with the tactics, who knows? They might have done what Forest have done so many times this season, catching another team off guard. Pretty much what City did to them and scoring early. So yeah, I think there'll be a frustrating one when Forest fans look back on this, as much as they'll hopefully look back on this season with a Champions League position and getting to an FA Cup semi and just coming up against an excellent team. I think they might look at this one with a little bit of like, that one got away.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I think it all comes down to how they bounce back in the next game, which we'll talk about later in the preview, but is against Palace, which could have been a dress rehearsal for the final, which would have been good. But yeah, how are you feeling about who's going to win the FA Cup? There's only one answer really.
Oh
So
mate, I'm here for Palace. It's going to be the crowning moment for Oliver Glasner, and Eze and Gay can captain the club and then say a fond farewell.
yeah,
It needs to be Palace. I think everyone from the other 14, even Brighton rivals, would be hoping that Palace can do something.
I'd hope. I've got a strong feeling this team probably gets dismantled at the end of this season. Unfortunately, like it sounds crazy, but I was so happy at the end of the game. But I was looking at it and being like, there's too much that's been seen on a proper international level now for us to hold on to a few of these players. But yeah, cool. Like I said, it's not a Palace podcast, so we'll move on to the Premier League games from the weekend. I think we should probably start with one that's going to cut you a little bit deep. Do you want to start with Brighton West Ham?
Yeah, I think out of the Premier League games, we can definitely start with Brighton West Ham, which, you know, from a Brighton perspective, is an unreal win. Like 94th minute, having been losing in the 89th, I think it was, and when they scored their second, that's unreal for Brighton. Like a
Yeah.
home win, like that it keeps them in that sort of like hunt for eighth position, like best of the rest kind of thing. And they had to do it with a couple of like changes as well. So like Carlos Baleba, who's played in centre mid pretty much most of the season, has had to go into centre back with Van Hecker out and the other injuries that they've got there. And so from a West Ham perspective, you're thinking, great, they've got a makeshift centre back. Let's put Fulkrug or someone on him. But for some reason, we played Kudus and Bowen up top in the first half. And there's just one thing I'll say. Bowen, like, I love Jared Bowen. He is not a striker. He can do a job if you're in a pinch. Like last January when we had no fit strikers and he had to play there because we couldn't buy anyone. That's fine. Like fine. Like if he's for a month or to cover injury. But Fulkrug's available on this. He's on the bench. He comes off in the second half, and it's like, and he's just played and scored. Like I don't see why you're resting him for this game. And the real sort of issue with that was we just looked like we didn't have anything in attack without having that sort of striker.
You say well. Basically, a lot of my analysis revolves a bit around Falkirk, in all honesty. But you say you have nothing. You do go 2-1. Well, you're 2-1 up in the 80th minute still.
Yeah,
But
Fulbrook comes on in the second half and sort of like turns things around. Like,
do you think he was rested because of his comments?
I think it's very likely that he was dropped because of it. Like, I think Potter sort of came out and said that it wasn't particularly helpful, maybe, or that they would have preferred to have keep it in house. I mean, as a fan, I would rather them keep it out and like to be able to see those sort of comments. I understand why Potter's done that from their decision, but like just to sort of like Brighton found like they tactically knew where to pinpoint West Ham. Like Hertzler said after the game, we made sure to make sure those last 10 minutes that the team knew what areas to be probing, etc. And it's like, and West Ham have seen this is not the last time in the last like month or so that we've conceded late on, like conceded that late on to Liverpool, conceded late on last week to Southampton. Like we're dropping points. It's some new behaviour that we've discovered, and we're dropping points that could be draws or wins at the end of games at the moment. And yeah, there's a lot to be said about Potter. We could make this a full West Ham podcast and deep dive into that, but he's got an interesting summer ahead of him. And
It's
yeah, from a Brighton perspective, I'd just say this was an excellent game. And what the key tactical to the game was just West Ham sitting off in
yeah,
midfield.
that's exactly what I was going to bring up. I was going to say where Brighton score the last goal, especially, they're just leaving men like outside the penalty
Yeah,
box with
we're
loads
so
of space, inviting the shot really, and it's just
It's the first and the third. Like the
yeah,
third is so bad for it, but the first is also bad for it. Like they're just like the midfielders are just like, oh, they can let them have a shot, and it's like, well, you're up against quality players. Like they can strike a ball, so let's not be giving them 10 yards around the edge of the box just to freely have a hit.
that's it, isn't it? I mean, from the corner just before Brighton scored a third. I don't know if you've seen the analysis where it's basically there's three West Ham players not even facing the corner coming in, and it's just a bit like that's not down. Who's that down to? Is it down to the coach? Is it down to the players? Is it just a bit of demotivation because there's nothing to play for? You're not going down. Is
I
it
think
just
it's
like
probably a bit of all of that. I would say I make sort of like one statement on this current West Ham team is like on paper, there's loads of quality, there's loads of players that you'd be like, I'm sure other 14 teams would be like, yeah, would have them. Whether they just have some like lack, or some of them have a lack of like footballing smarts or just sort of like streetwise common sense, etc. Like something's lacking within this team that these talented players they don't work together as a like defensive unit. They don't have the same mentality throughout the like phases of the match or the like style that they want to play. So yeah, I'm sure we say it every week, but it's a big summer for West Ham.
yeah, it really is. Moving on to Brighton a bit more. It pains me to say it, but I was looking at the fixtures that basically them. It's Brentford, Fulham, and Brighton at this point, isn't it? For that
Yeah.
eighth spot, which will most likely be Europe. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it's those three.
Hmm.
Looking at all their results coming up, fixtures coming up. Brighton look like the ones that will probably secure that eighth spot. I think I've got. They're the ones where I'm seeing their fixtures and I'm thinking this could be their shot in the arm. This West Ham game, the absolute limbs to give that whole squad belief, and yeah, pains me to say it, but I can see them getting that conference spot. And if they're in the conference as well, I'm more scared they'll probably end up winning it because that's the most winnable European competition, I think, for any English team. Not throwing shade on you as a West Ham fan for actually winning it.
We're the
But I
only
feel,
ones who've actually won it,
yeah,
so
only ones that want it. But do feel like the English team should be the team winning that every year because they realistically only get, what, one or two hard games towards the end of it? That's maybe a bit
oh
brutal.
yeah, no, every Premier League team entering it should be winning it
Yeah.
based off like the quality of the teams and stuff. But some of them don't take it as seriously, and they don't have that trophy in their closet. Looking at the Brighton fixtures, I would kind of disagree. I'd say like they've actually
Really?
got really hard fixtures, like Newcastle fighting for Champions League. They've got Wolves who are seemingly unbeatable right now. Then they got Liverpool and Tottenham at like the last two games, right? You might have three hits there where no one's expecting anything, but I don't know. Those next two, at least, like we'll see what.
But if you look at say Fulham's upcoming fixtures: Villa away, Everton at home, Brentford away, so that'll be a big one, and City away. So they've not got a good run, and then it comes down to Brentford or Fulham are going to take points off each other to help Brighton.
Mm.
Then Brentford have United, Ipswich, Fulham, and Wolves. So, but they're a few points behind from what I remember.
Bournemouth have got Arsenal, Villa, City, and Leicester.
Oh, Bournemouth. Sorry, it's Bournemouth. I've been thinking
Yeah, it's
Brentford. My
Bournemouth and
bad.
Brentford.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I wanted you to check because I knew in my head I would be getting the bees mixed up. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's been impossible to call at the moment. They've like just switched like who wins and draws between these three teams at one point between them. It's crazy tight.
I know. That's probably the one time I'll be unbiased towards Brighton. But yeah, I'm getting myself up for when when they end up getting Europe at the end of the year. Anything else you want to touch on the match? I know, like you said, could deep dive into like the woes of West Ham at the moment, but you could turn it
No,
around.
we'll leave that one there. It was a gutting end to the match, but yeah, we'll leave that one there and move on.
Nice. Do you want to move on to Saints Fulham? I think because that was quite an interesting game, a bit similar to the West Ham game with a couple of late goals for Fulham in a 2-1 win.
Yeah, I mean, Saints thought sort of like they were improvements. I would say for Southampton, like they were winning the match, sort of had chances to kill the game, but I guess when your luck's down and you can't finish, then unfortunately they couldn't find a way to get that second crucial goal, and that leaves Fulham to get back into it.
Yeah, I was thinking like from only have been able to see the highlights for this one. From watching it to begin with, you're like, where's this Southampton team been all year? Like, if they had played this way, surely they would have had a better chance of being able to stay in the league and give a bit more of a fight for it. And it just feels like they've gone without luck. They've got their heads down towards the end of the game. What did you make of the penalty shout for Soleimani, where he didn't go down, and I think Anderson basically runs into him. If he goes down, I think he gets a penalty all day long. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
No, it's basically Anderson comes running out, barges him, and Soleimani like gets past him but stays on his feet rather than going to ground. And I think that's getting given as a penalty all day, if I'm being brutally honest. But then Fulham get themselves back into it, don't they? The first is a bit of a lucky goal, I think, for Smith Rowe, but he takes a shot in a good place, gets a big deflection over Ramsdale. But as soon as that goal goes in, I guess Saints fans are probably thinking, shit, it's happening again.
For sure. I think from a Fulham perspective, it was like a case of trust the process. Like they had been creating chances in the match, like getting sort of like Southampton are dropping deeper and deeper, and Fulham are pressing like the control in the game a lot more. I think it was a case of right, like Marco Silva sort of words to the team, just like keep plugging away. Like Southampton, unfortunately, given the position they are, they'll drop their heads at some point, and they'll just be desperate for like full time. And they're obviously quite late in the match. Like Sessegnon gets a header, and
We,
yeah,
we said it a few weeks ago, maybe even before we started podding, but Sessegnon is averaging like a goal a month for them still.
and he's
And
popped up in left back now.
yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Like he's probably been such a good pickup for them. And like I said, he was training with Palace at the beginning of the season. I have no idea why we didn't sign him up and take him on board as a backup for Munoz or Mitchell on either side. It would have been amazing. But instead
Yeah,
of giving Chilwell probably
yeah, I
200
think it
grand.
was before we started podding, but yeah, he's been it's a great choice to bring back for Marco Silva and Fulham, and I even saw some Fulham fans hinting that Sessegnon might be next in line for captaincy of the club, which feels crazy given he wasn't there 12 months ago, but you know, that's what happens when you have that familiarity and that touch of love with the fans.
Yeah, it's really that. Then I guess like touching we did with Brighton, how do you feel about Fulham's chances for Europe? Are you thinking they're in for it, or do you think they're just the inconsistency isn't there?
That's the problem with Fulham is their inconsistency. Like they sort of get over the mark on this one with a 2-1 win, but they've got Villa, Everton, Brentford, and City. I just don't trust them to score enough goals to win those games.
That's it, isn't it? What I mean, Smith Rowe's been a bit underwhelming for him this year. If he could hit a patch of form for him, maybe, but you don't know, do you? You just feel like they'll probably drop short, and then you look at Fulham's season. It's been one that's flattered to deceive just through that inconsistency.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd have offered Fulham fans what eight, if they can get eighth, which is the position they're currently in, so they sort of hold the cards with a little bit extra goal difference. If you'd have offered Fulham fans at the start of the season, right, you'll finish eighth, and that will be enough to qualify for the Europa Conference League, which I think it probably will be. I think they'd have taken that. I think absolutely, like when you consider where like they're not that far from being promoted a couple seasons ago, and where the other promoted teams and that have struggled since. I think a little bit of that like hindsight and thinking that like this has been excellent progress actually for Fulham and where they are in their sort of like since they've got promotion, a top half finish and some European football next year that absolutely can't be sniffed at. So I think it's a lot to build on as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that in all honesty. But I still think Brighton are probably getting that spot. Anything else you want to touch on that game before we move on to, I think, Newcastle Ipswich?
No, no,
No?
let's jump to Newcastle.
Cool. So 3-0 win for Newcastle Ipswich. I think Newcastle win was my lock of the week last week in predictions. And yeah, I think you said it was probably the easiest one to pick as lock of the week.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bold statement to say the least. This
But
this one felt like a battering.
yeah,
I think 3-0 is probably accurate on that XG, but as a sort of watching the game, this honestly could have been anything for Newcastle.
really, like, it really was. I mean, the Brendan Johnson red, was it not Brendan Johnson? Sorry,
Ben
Ben
Johnson's red
Johnson
card.
red card. Yeah, I mean, do you think it was a bit harsh, or do you think it was definitely two yellows?
Yeah, I mean it's similar to that Nketiah one that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. Like there's contact for the first one that's deemed simulation, but it's like, is it enough sort of thing? So like,
I'm just gonna have a quick check who the referee was in that game. So was it Anthony?
I've pricked his like referee bashing ears.
Was it Anthony Taylor that was the ref in that? Let me see.
I mean, the second one, like the second yellow for Johnson, is crazy. If you're already on a yellow card, you can't be
You can't be
grabbing
doing that,
that
yeah.
to let him like, as he's running past you.
Let me see, where is it? It was no Michael Salisbury. I'm wrong. I can't do my referee bashing. I'll get back in my box. But no, yeah, you can't really be doing it, can you? And I mean, the Dan Burn goal was like an architectural Dan Burn goal.
Oh, it was from like 6 inches from the goal line, wasn't it?
It really was. It's just like everything you expect. But it was just Newcastle looked the real deal to me, and I honestly thought they'd drop up after the League Cup. I didn't think they'd be able to hold it together the whole season. After the Villa game as well, they needed a bounce back, and they really did it. It could have been a banana skin with Ipswich kind of playing with a bit of pressure off. I know it confirmed their relegation, and it was hard. But Kieran McKenna, I think, said in his pre post match conference, he was basically said it's not going to change the feeling around here. We kind of knew the writing was on the wall, but you just thought they'd maybe have a bit more fight. But Newcastle away is a tough game for anyone. I think every team in the league is worried about going to St James's Park now.
Yeah, rightfully so. It was bouncing with Eddie Howe back on the touchline, and they knew they had to bounce back from that Villa defeat, and they managed to do so in style. And as you say, is any away fan going up to St James's Park right now is like, I swear they always score a lot as well. Like, so it's not even like, oh well, they're the home team, they're going to score. Like, it feels like this Newcastle team are repeatedly scoring 3+ goals, especially at St James's Park. That's just like, almost go there with that mindset of like, well, they're going to score at least two or three. So how do we combat that? And for Ipswich, there was always a very very long shot, and their fans will know that. And like, what you said from McKenna, absolutely speaks sort of volumes on everything that I've heard coming out of Ipswich and like from Ipswich fans. Like they're very much of the thinking like, yeah, this was a bonus to
Mm.
like the last couple of years and what how unreal they've been. Just playing and just getting back to the top flight of English football after 20 odd years out of it. I think it was just sort of like a all right, nice experience, but they all sort of knew what this was going to be and relegated with a couple games left to go. I think they'll keep, like we said on previous podcasts, I think they'll keep a decent group together, and McKenna seems set on staying, so they're probably in a decent place to bounce back. Like,
You took the notes out of my mouth really there. That's what I was going to say. It's like from the three that are going down, they do look like the ones who are most likely going to be able to put the big effort in to come back. Even if they do lose Delap, I think they still probably got enough there and a good enough coach to give it a real go in the championship and
yeah,
maybe come back stronger, knowing what to expect in the Premier League.
yeah, well, I don't think they overexerted themselves at all in the Premier League. Like they spent a lot of money, but they obviously got a lot of money for getting into the league. Whereas like Southampton bought a lot, and Leicester have high wages. They're going to have PSR issues. And they want to get rid of their coach, etc. So like Ipswich feels the most settled, obviously from a coaching perspective, but also I think majority of the starting team will be kicking around. Like half of the squad were still playing in that League One days. That's how far they've come in such a short time. So I think they've got a good basis. They'll obviously lose a couple of the sort of higher profile players, but yeah, I think they'll be primed to bounce back and definitely be in with like a playoff position for next year.
Yeah, I'd probably wish them all the best because I loved going to Portman Road. So I'm glad
Yeah,
I'm not going to be able to go there next year. But going back to Newcastle quickly before moving on, I was gutted I couldn't get up there for the away game because I'd love to know what the atmosphere is like when Newcastle get that first goal. Because I feel like that must be playing
roaring.
into
Yeah,
like it's like the away team feeling it, like feeling they're surrounded. They've got no their own fans there, and it's just like okay, we're going to take full advantage of you now, and the Geordies are going to put you to the pump.
yeah. I mean, old school stadium. The fans are right on the pitch. Like they part the away fans right up in the gods, so that no one remembers that they're there. Like, and it feels like a intimidating environment full of like black and white just screaming down. So yeah, an awful place to go, I'm sure.
Yeah, nice, cool. And then another team that got a pump in, we move on to Wolves Leicester.
Yeah.
So I think Jamie Vardy announcing his retirement. Well, not retirement, actually, just leaving Leicester. Don't know where yet, but I think just got to give him a mention really for what he's done from his age as well to score so many goals and probably Leicester's greatest ever player, would you say?
Oof. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Given sort of like especially the form as he delivered the title, like it was just unreal. I think he broke Van Nistelrooy's record of scoring in goals in games in a row.
Yeah.
And I think what will help him in like in regards of like Leicester's greatest ever player sort of thing was him staying around when all of the other 2015, 16, like all that era's players moved on. Jamie Vardy stayed around for Leicester and went down with them. Obviously got the FA Cup with them in recent seasons. So yeah, I think an authentic player is how I would sort of
Oh,
claim him, like proper authentic. Like you might not like him, you might loathe him a little bit. I'm sure there are some Leicester fans who he probably grates on a little bit because of his character and his like mannerisms and that. But I'm sure the majority of Leicester fans absolutely love him and have him as that like authentic idol and just sort of he's been a breath of fresh air for the Premier League in
yeah.
this modern era. Like just sort of like almost a throwback player.
I was going
In,
to say he might pop up on Pete Barclays at
very
one
much might.
because he's got that. But even as a away fan, having him, I think one of the biggest shithouseries he's ever done was scoring at Selhurst and then running to the Homestead doing an eagle. And even I was stood there like, that's good shithousery right there.
Good
Like
shithousery. We're losing a recipe with Vardy not retiring but leaving
leaving. Yeah.
Leicester.
Where do you think? I will move into the game in a second, but where do you think he goes? Do you think he goes to a newly promoted team, or that maybe goes
I
abroad
think
or
he'll be
something?
looking for an MLS trip. I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
smart.
given Rebecca Vardy and that, I think she'll be in his ear. Can you see if we can get a year in New York or LA? Like,
Mate, I hope he gets
I've
it.
what, been at Leicester for 10 years or so, like 13 years now. Like,
Oh, what a great serve for their club. But yeah, then moving into the game, I think there's one place I'd start, and it would just be why did Leicester give Cunha the freedom of the park? It was unbelievable. Like from the highlights I've seen, and I've seen some extended bits, it seemed like he just could do whatever he wanted. And why wouldn't you just sacrifice a man and be like, get on him for the whole game, do not let him go? Especially when you got two holding midfielders playing. You got Ndidi, who whenever I've seen him play against us, he puts in a proper shift in holding midfield. I know I don't think you rate him as highly as I do.
I
So
don't think Ndidi's had a good season by any means.
yeah,
And I think like he'd probably be one of the first to hold their hands up and say like that they've not performed well. And I don't understand at all why they wouldn't have someone in Cunha's spot. Like if you're playing defensive midfielders and Wolves play with a two behind a one striker, there's going to be players popping up in that like area of the pitch where your defensive midfielders need to be aware of them. And I mean, Cunha, as we sort of said last time, like he came back from his suspension and he's come back with a point to prove.
yeah, he's whipped his dick out on the table and fucking shown everyone like. Because I even said on the pod, I think they're doing better without him. Maybe they don't need him, and with all the rumours he's getting, maybe they'll do better. But yeah, he's come and definitely shown what he can do there, and it's been absolute class. Another Wolves player that showed. I was watching highlights and I was like, Strand Larson misses from 3 yards out. I'm like, finally shown he's human. And then, yeah, like, what was it, 20 minutes later, he scores another goal. I'm just there, like, yep,
Yeah, I
it
don't know how
is.
he missed that one. Given the form that he's in, don't know how he missed that one.
It's
But
just one of those, isn't it? We've been there when we've been playing, like, our shit five-a-side where
oh
the
yeah,
ball's, like,
yeah,
just a bit out of reach and you fall back and you hit it. It's just there, like,
just
I've missed
trying to
it.
extend yourself. I mean, for this one, like major flowers to Wolves for 6 wins in a row. Like just think that needs like stepping back and just realizing how crazy that is. Like it's the first time Wolves have ever done it in the top flight. I think, at least in the Premier League era for sure.
I wouldn't be, it must be, yeah, because winning six in a row for any team is a massive achievement. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and it's just crazy when you look at like where they were beforehand, before this run, even, but before Pereira took charge as well. And they look so well drilled. Like this match, I called like Wolves winning over Leicester. Didn't think that there was anything to shout home about. It's not a bold prediction, but Wolves look so well drilled in their setup. Like even Cunha coming in knows exactly where he should be, where he's pressing, etc. The two in midfield, Gomez and Andre, are just like terriers. Like they just sort of like they're excellent quality on the ball, but they just run after you and just bite at your ankles. Like they're proper quality. And then like Ait Nouri had another good game at left wing back position. His attacking ability is excellent for that from that position. And then like Leicester just looked like they had no confidence in this game. Like you can't blame them. Like the
but
sort of
you
struggles
say
that they've had this season is such a just get the season over and done with for feeling for them.
You say that, but they did have that result against Brighton last week, wasn't it? The 2-2. And
Mm.
you thought maybe that's a bit of a turning, well, obviously not a turning point because it's not going to change the end of the season for them, but you just thought, okay, they'll be able to hold their head up high and maybe be able to give teams a goal now because it looked like they'd maybe sorted out a formation that could work for them and get the best out of the players. But it just, yeah, it's just
It
right on
didn't
the
seem that
ball.
way against Wolves,
No. And then
unfortunately.
real kick in the teeth was obviously the missed penalty. With the penalty, do you think Vardy needed to go down? Because I've seen him go around the keeper like that 100 times and slot it away. It seemed like I think he just overhit the ball a bit too much and probably felt like he needed to go down. Like it's a penalty day, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a penalty, and I think I would have expected better with the actual penalty from Vardy.
Sar's got a good record against in penalty shootouts, I believe.
Does he?
Maybe, yeah, I think he does. I may be pulling that out of my arse in all honesty, but I'm pretty sure he does. But no, I guess my last point on this is just like you're saying about 6 wins in a row for Wolves. It's just like a bit of a word of warning going into next season because we had it last year where we went on an incredible run of just not losing a game for like 8 in a row, and then every Palace fan was like, "We're going to win everything next season. We're going to win the league. It's going to be like this." And then we lost. We didn't get a win in our first nine, and everyone turned on the manager a bit, and it was all a bit doom and gloom. I just want to say, if there's any Wolves fans out there, like, hope for the best for next season. But if they get off to a bad start, just remember that team's still in there. And if you hold the best sum of the parts, and the manager knows what he's doing, it'll come good.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably a very comparable situation. One, given the formation is currently the same, and two, they're probably going to lose Mateus Cunha, like Palace lost Michael Elise, and that like what that does to your team when such a star player leaves. I mean, we've shown Wolves' ability like to be able to play well and win games when Cunha's been out with his recent suspension. So they would hope, I'm sure they'd be expecting much the same, sort of like that they can build on with and like reinvest the fee that they get for him. But it's definitely a cautious tale, sort of like, especially if you lose a player of that quality, and if you just think the end of last season's going to continue. I think it can always humble you.
Yeah, but I think they've got a manager there that can definitely take them somewhere next season. So, yeah, I'll just keep the head up with it in all honesty. Unlike Leicester, unfortunately, well, I think, yeah, Rude's going to be gone by the end of the season and they're going to have a bit of a torrid time in the Championship. I hope they prove me wrong and we see him back next year, but yeah, it all seems a bit of a mess behind the scenes. But yeah, cool. Anything else you want to touch on there before moving into Bournemouth Man United?
No, let's move on to Bournemouth Man United.
Cool. I think I probably want to start with the most outrageous thing for me, the Evan Nilsson red card. Where do you sit on this? Because I think it was a straight red, and I think the fact it was a yellow to begin with was a bit crazy.
Yeah,
But
no,
everyone
I
else,
think it was a straight red. I agree with you. Like this was reckless.
yeah,
Like
we finally agreed on a red card. But yeah, because they were saying on Match of the Day, it's like, nah, the player slips. Like you got to think of it in real time. But I was just looking at it like, there's no excuse for that. Like,
no,
it's
I mean it's reckless in real time. Like okay, he slips and it looks worse, and then like you replay it and it probably looks worse, but it didn't look great in real time. So I have no problem with this being like a red card straight away.
okay. I'm happy with that one. But Evan Nilsson for the goal for Semenyo,
Yeah, really nice setup.
that is.
Yeah, Evan Nilsson's a quality player. Like there's a reason why they spent big on him to replace Solanke. Like it's probably taken him a few months in the season to get up to sort of speed, but I think he's another player that's been like excellent for Bournemouth over the course of the season and can be built on next season. But like yeah, those touches of him like that he can do. He's done for years for Porto. Like
It's just, it
so
was unreal and a lovely finish from Semenyo. And I think when that first goal goes in what was it, 2 minutes or something? Or
it was
like,
early.
it was early doors. I think I'm getting mixed up with the game against Fulham, aren't I, last week? But yeah, early doors with that goal, you're thinking they're probably going to go on to rout United at the end of this. And they just couldn't find that killer blow, really. I think Kepa also had to pull off some good saves from a few United chances, but yeah, it was a bit of a sting right at the end for Bournemouth to be conceding that late on.
Yeah, I mean, crazy to be conceding that late on, but this is one that you would have, like as you say, you would have thought Bournemouth could have put their foot on the gas, and like, I think United were there for the taking. Like Bournemouth looked the sort of more confident, like the more likely team that they were going to get a second goal and put the game to bed. So for them not to be able to achieve that and to let that goal in the last minute is just really like gutting, especially like we've sort of touched on it a little earlier with them being one of those three trying to get into the last spot, and like they were the one team that didn't win today, so it kind of just like makes it even more murkier in that.
Yeah, that's the one. If they're goal free today, you think that puts them in pole position. That's what I'm thinking. That the other team from the south coast is probably going to snip in there before them,
Mm.
unfortunately. But well, fortunately for them.
But let's just sort of like we'll touch on this one briefly, but let's just say Antoine Semenyo, the player we can't stop talking about on this pod.
It's just literally shit on everything I said last week about the Bournemouth fans in the pub, saying they don't rate him. Goes in, scores a great goal. Your missus is probably thinking, why he's not doing this for Ghana again. It's just
100%. Like, it's so funny that you said the Bournemouth fans have the same feeling that she had.
honestly, he's gonna come up every week, isn't he? At this rate, but if
Oh
he's
yeah,
doing the business, like there's nothing else you can expect. But
no.
no, anything else to touch on really from that game? I think it was pretty cut and dry. I mean, there was a Tyler Adams red card, which well, shout for a red card. I don't know if you saw that, but it was just a really unnecessary challenge he lunged into. Like it's a
Mm.
bit like well, I guess the Evans Nielsen was a bit unlucky for him if he slipped, but it just seemed like unnecessary challenges. Like they were maybe a bit too amped up for the game for some reason. But yeah, apart from that, I don't think there's too much else to touch on, is there?
No, not from that one. I guess lastly we can just sort of touch on Everton's 1-0 loss to Chelsea.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this one. Was this a very David Moyes away from home against a top six size performance? Like, is this a game that you've seen over and over again?
This is a game that Moyes will come out after and be like, yeah, it was a good enough performance, good enough result. Like obviously the result isn't good for Everton fans, but this is the kind of thing that Moyes would just be like, look, we didn't get beat 4-5-0.
Yeah,
We only lost 1-0. We were in the game, and to be fair to him, a couple like half chances turn into full chances, and Everton are well in this. Like I think they were a bit poor to start with, but they came on late. Like the last sort of 30, 40 minutes of the game was all pretty much Everton, and they could have scored, but unfortunately in this game it was a lot of half chances. There wasn't sort of clear cut ones that you'd be screaming they have to score. But yeah, there wasn't a lot between these two. I think we spoke beforehand that this was a tough game to call, and I think it really really played out like that, like a sort of
yeah.
scrappy affair, like 1-0.
I think it's mad the way Everton did concede that goal though, because it was basically the analysis of match a day, which I'm not sure if it was right or not, but they had Everton saying Moyes had set up a different system for Everton for that, and that's basically what caused them to concede the first goal because they're passing out from the back, which I've definitely seen them do at Selhurst like this season. I'm pretty sure I saw them do it at Goodison as well. But yeah, it's Beto I think that gets caught on a turn, isn't it? And then
Mhm.
Chelsea in it. It's an unfortunate one, but you just think if Everton got one goal, they could probably have turned it a bit and got a bit more out of the game. It's
Yeah, I
just
mean, I don't think Chelsea was scoring another, so Everton, if they could have got a goal, probably would have got out with a draw, if not been able to get an extra one and got out with a win. But yeah, I think it was a poor defensive response after Beto lost the ball for the goal. Like, I don't think anyone closed. I think it was Jackson who received it down. Oh, so it was Enzo to Jackson. There wasn't enough closing down from Everton, and whether that's a slight change that they had to make to the back four, where Patterson came in at right back and
yeah.
O'Brien moved in to centre back because Tarkowski's out, whether that had an impact on things, especially early on when you're still sort of figuring out the new alignment and that. But that's that's looking at it with like squinting at it. I would have preferred like a better response from the Everton players when Beto loses that ball.
Yeah, I mean Beto nearly goes up the other end and makes amends for it, but you do have that incredible save from Robert Sanchez. Like it just wasn't really Everton's day, was it? If we're being
No,
honest.
another day they come away with points, but yeah, not much else to say on this one.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Cool. Okay, let's take a little break and then we'll go into our peak Barclaysman for the week.
Hello and welcome back to the Other 14 FC podcast, and we've flipped the script on you. I am throwing Pete Barclays over to Alex this week. Who do you have for us?
So what I have for you is a DR Congo player who came to a small club in southeast London, laced up his boots, and yeah, turned himself into a bit of a world beater in the Premier League after being a journeyman round the lower leagues for quite a bit of time. I have Yannick Yala Balassi. He had 119 Premier League appearances with 11 goals and 17 assists. And I think we can basically say he wasn't really about the goals or the assists. He was more about the streets won't forget flair and skills and really creating key moments in games for a Crystal Palace team that didn't have much of that at the time, in all honesty. What do you see him as from an opposition's point of view?
Yeah, Balassi was one of these players that was, I'm sure, frustrating for Palace fans to watch, as sort of like talismanic figures often are. But he's the reason why you go to the football, why a lot of us go to the football, is to watch players who get you on your feet. And I think Balassi got everyone on their feet, like neutral, opposition, home fans, like everyone would stand up and pay attention just to know see what he was going to do next on the ball.
Mate, that's it. Like you've hit nail on the head. As Palace fans, we were like defenders aren't going to be able to defend him because they don't know what's going to happen because he don't know what he's going to do before it happens.
Well, Dejan Lovren paid the price for that, didn't he? Like,
Really paid the price for it. Like that one way he just swipes his hand in front of the ball. Like what is he doing there?
that's what Lovren must be thinking. Is just like, what are you doing?
just poor mind games. Imagine being like a proper world class defender and he is in front of you doing that. But then there's another skill he does against him where he flicks the ball over off his knee over Lovren's head, skins it, and puts it across for a Palace goal against
And
Liverpool.
then
It's
there's
just
that
like
Palace, there's that Tottenham one, isn't there, where he's like just gets out of trouble. Like you look like there's no way he's getting out of that, and then 2 seconds later, and it's like, oh, the ball's over there now. Shit.
how many players in the modern era have a skill called after them now? Like that's it. You think you've seen everything on a
That's
football
rare.
pitch.
That's rare.
That's just yeah, that's it, isn't it? A couple of other highlights: 11-minute hat trick. So he scored basically the majority of his goals in 11 minutes against
Yeah, he
Sunderland,
scored a good like almost 30% of his goals in one match. That is peak Barclays if I've seen it.
which is crazy. I think the one thing that put him on the map was the one of the assists in the Crystal game, sort of like
Iconic.
yeah, where Liverpool's title hopes were crushed, where he literally gets it, barges Glenn Johnson, knocks the ball and runs, and he is just going like down towards the Holmesdale, puts it across for I think Dwight Gale's first goal. So I think that's one thing that really put him on the map for us, and he had a quite a successful career with Congo. I think he played 50 games, scoring 9 times. So yeah, and then also he was a bit of a journeyman before finding the club, and I think that's what kind of gives him this bit of like peak Barclays-ness to him because you can tell he's like seen the leagues, he's done it all, and he's come to the Premier League and actually been able to express himself a bit.
Yeah, we love that with our Pete Barclaysman, someone who's had a different journey to the top. That's something that you wouldn't expect, and yeah, I don't think Balassi was ever one of those who come through all the academies and was like this shiny product. He was always this raw, almost like a kid who just like wanted to dribble with the ball or do something that would like get everyone around him to like be stunned or like to cheer and that like he was a proper entertainer. And I mean, I suppose that goes on to our fun fact about him. What have you got?
Yeah, so as you usually do, you get your fun facts out. But you had what Paducah having a coffee shop and Mortingham's Pets and being in a band. So I don't know if you're aware, but Balassi once was in a Lord of the Mikes battle with Bradley Wright Phillips.
Bradley Wright Phillips, who would go on to score tons of goals for New York Red Bulls. Bradley
Yes,
Wright Phillips.
exactly. And the if you've never listened to it, if there's any listeners out there that have interested, I would highly recommend it because it's both so funny but also so like cutting at points as well. Like let's just dissing on each other about like playing in pretty like bang average teams. It's like I'd highly recommend it. But yeah, I guess just left now. Basically, where would you put him on our peak Barclays world? I would obviously have him quite near the top, but I think cooler heads will prevail. He's probably bottom of our list at the moment, unfortunately.
I think he's probably third. I think longevity might do for him, and this might be me talking sideways out my mouth, where I'm not sure he had necessarily as long longevity as Pedersen.
No, I think he obviously came from nothing, scored in an FA Cup semi-final for us, and then got his move for 14 million to Everton. I think if he hadn't had the horrific injury at Everton, then maybe there could have been more of a Barclays call, but well, more of a Pete Barclays calling for him. But yeah, I think that's kind of hit the nail on the head. There's no longevity there really for him. But I think it was nice for you to let me take the Pete Barclays with.
I had to with the Palace win on the weekend. We had to indulge you a little bit.
Cheers. And like I said, I've tried my best not to be a Palace podcast this week, and we'll be back to normal occurrences next week. But cool. So just to round off the pod, should we go into our predictions for next week?
Yeah, let's run through 'em.
Nice. Okay, so we have Thursday 7:30 kickoff, Forest Brentford. I think it's a big game for Forest to bounce back, really, isn't it? If they have the semi-final hangover, but they're going to need to win this if they're looking for Champions League at all.
Yeah, I think Brentford can come away with this one. I think Forest will be probably nursing their wounds a little bit, and I think Brentford are just not the team that you would want to face after that. So I reckon I'll go for a 3-1 Brentford victory away from home.
Oh, see, I disagree with you. I think if it was at the G-Tech, then it would be that scoreline, but I think it's going to be a 1-0 Forest win. I think it's going to be a very, them type of win this year. Just getting that one goal and just, seeing the game off. Cool. Then moving into Friday night, we have City versus Wolves. I guess this is going to be a hard one for Wolves, isn't it? To see if they can make it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them making it seven in a row. It's got to come to an end at some point. I'm sorry, Wolves fans, and I think this is obviously the biggest chance that it does. I have City winning this 2-0, I think.
Screwed. I'm going balls out. I think it's going to be a draw. I think it might be 1-1. Yeah, I've got a feeling just. Don't know what it is in my plums, but yeah. And then moving on to Saturday, the early kickoff, Villa Fulham. Huge one for Europe, isn't it? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, both the race for Champions League and the race for that hopefully one extra European spot. I think Villa bounce back from this one. I don't think we've seen too many bad performances from Villa, and they didn't have a good performance on Saturday in the FA Cup. So, and then Fulham are just inconsistent.
Yeah.
I struggle to back Fulham at this moment in time against a team with Villa who can obviously rotate a few players in. I think Villa win this 2-1.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you. I think it's going to be a Villa win. I'm going to go 2-0 in all honesty. I don't know why. I think they're just going to want to get a bit of revenge on someone after what's happened over the weekend. And I think a lot of their fans were unhappy that they didn't turn up. So I think they'll be looking to give something a bit back to their fans. Yeah, then moving on to the first 3 o'clock kickoff, Everton Ipswich. I think this is going to be my lock of the week. I've got a feeling. I think this is a Dave Moyes masterclass all over, beating a team in and around them. I'm going to go 2-0. Yeah, 2-0 Everton.
Yeah, I think penultimate Goodison game is going to play a massive factor here, especially the last one at Saturday, 3 o'clock, I believe, because the last one is on a Sunday. I think Everton are going to have a fun last Saturday afternoon at Goodison, 3-0. Unfortunately, sorry, Ipswich fans.
I think, the sea of blue flares are going to be coming out across Everton now in those last few games. And the atmosphere will be absolutely rocking. Then another 3 o'clock, not big game, but
basement battle.
Basement battle. Yeah, I guess it's just a game of pride, really, isn't it? Leicester Saints. I don't think I can call this one.
I think I've seen more from Saints than I have from Leicester in recent weeks since Saints made that managerial change. But then it's away. I think it's going to frustrate both teams, and they're going to end up cancelling each other out with a 1-1.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for a draw, and I think I'm going to go for a really horrible 0-0 draw.
Oof.
That being said, I don't know if Saints can hold a clean sheet, if I'm being honest.
To be fair, they've been defensively a bit better. A clean sheet would be a holy grail for them, but...
Yeah, no, I'm going to go 0-0. I think I'm wrong, but I'm going to go 0-0.
Fair enough. What about Arsenal v Bournemouth at 5:30 on Saturday?
I don't know with this one. It depends on the Champions League, I guess, for Arsenal. If they do well in that and tire themselves out. We didn't touch on it, but the Palace-Arsenal game, the 2-2, I was at that game myself, and Arsenal just looked like they didn't care by the end of the game, which was really strange. So I think Bournemouth will get something. I think it'll probably be like a 2-2. What about yourself?
I think they'll probably come up a little bit short with Arsenal trying to just keep as much momentum going for the for the Champions League finals. So I think it'll probably be a 2-1 win for Arsenal over Bournemouth.
Okay, fair. And then Sunday 2 o'clock we have Brentford United.
I think Brentford should be expecting to win this one,
We've said it every week, haven't we? Every team should be expecting to be taking points off United for
especially when
sure.
you're at home. Like,
I can see it. Like I feel like Brentford are well rested at the moment, but if they've got that game against Forest on the Thursday and then on the Sunday, I think that's the only thing that might trip them up a bit.
but then Man United have got the Europa League, and they've
Um,
clearly said like, well, that's all we care about. So, like, I would be saying Brentford should be absolutely winning this one.
you've twisted my arm there. I'm going to go 3-1 Brentford. I think it's going to be a bit of an emphatic win because they're
I'm
the
gonna,
ones that
I'm gonna log this one up and go Brentford 2-0.
2-0. Nice. Yeah, because United have had a torrid time there before, haven't they? Losing like I think it was 4-0, like the first half
Yeah,
they went
yeah.
down or something, wasn't it? Cool. And then the other two, another 2 o'clock on Sunday, Brighton Newcastle. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there'll be goals no
Yeah.
matter what. It's a tough one to call because Brighton usually give Newcastle a fairly good game, if I remember correctly. But Newcastle at the moment full steam ahead for Champions League, bounce back after that Villa loss, and then they got the big win on Saturday. I think they'll have enough to get past Brighton, and I think this will be 4-2 to Newcastle.
4-2 Newcastle. Oh, that's big.
So goals.
I'm disagreeing with you. I think there'll be goals, but I think Brian will have got that shot in the arm. I think the Amex had those limbs, and he'll probably be in a good place. I honestly think it could be a Brighton 2-1, and I
Ooh,
think yeah, I think
interesting.
they'll go 2-0 up and then hang on when Newcastle get a late go. So yeah, I can't wait for that prediction to be completely wrong. You'd be absolutely mugged off, but yeah, I think it'll be that. And then how you feeling about West Ham Spurs? Obviously, a bit big derby there, but two teams probably not in the best form.
Two teams in terrible form.
Trying to be nice to you, mate.
Uh, there's nothing to be nice about. The season just needs to be over. Yeah, surely even West Ham can beat this Tottenham team, but like, I don't feel confident about it. But I'll be there cheering us on. I'm gonna go 2-1 West Ham.
Nice. I don't know. I don't know if Ange finally changes how he plays just to save some face in this game because if he loses this game, it's it. Like
Well,
you
they've got
can't
the
lose.
Champions. They've got the Europa League as well. So
You say that, but okay. I guess Europa League's more important. But losing to West Ham when West Ham is 17th in the table, he's going to lose the fans surely.
I don't know if it would have that much of a difference. To be honest, I think
Really.
they're all pretty much set, and yeah, we need all we can get. So
I'm gonna
we must
go.
be good at winning this.
I'm gonna go a horrid 0-0 for this one as well. I can't believe I predicted two 0-0s. That's so stupid. So
We
stupid.
want a short podcast next week.
Yeah. We had nothing to talk about.
Yeah,
Oh god.
just
But
0-0 for 10 matches. We'll have a week off.
oh god, I need one after the FA Cup semi-final. But
Well,
yeah,
last match of next week is Palace Forest on Monday night. At least you've got a big gap between matches to fully recover from the FA Cup, the semi-final
yeah.
hangover.
I I don't know. I think we're gonna have trouble in our next few games because every player's gonna be playing kind of within themselves, not within. They're not going to be given everything. It's going to be wide about cards and injuries and everything. I think we saw it a bit in the Newcastle and City games for us. Like I think Forest 1-0. They did us 1-0 away from home. I can see them to do us 1-0 at home as well. But I think Sellers will be rocking, and I think no one's really going to be too fussed. Like I said before, the semi-final was the only thing that mattered. I think the final now is everything to us. What do you think? I feel like Forest are in is probably written onto this.
Yeah, I mean, Forest probably with Palace all having their eyes, as you say, that all the team having their eyes on the FA Cup final in a couple of weeks' time after this. Like, but saying that, I think a draw. I think a 1-1 draw for me. I feel like these are two well coached teams. Forest will probably be looking to bounce back. We'll see what their result is against Brentford. That will play a part leading up to this. But yeah, I think 1-1 for this one.
Nice, cool. I'll probably take that anyway as well. So, yeah. Yeah, just to wrap up, you said yourself you're going to be at West Ham, so check our socials for anything in the game there. I'll be at Palace Monday night as well. And yeah, if you want to get in contact with us on socials, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Reddit, we're at Other14FC Podcast, and email Other14FCPodcast at gmail.com. Yeah, if you want to write in about maybe coming on to the show at some point or bringing in a Pete Barklesman that we should be talking about, let us know. We'd be happy to catch up. But yeah, other than that, hope everyone has a good week and just up the Other 14.